afternoon, everyone. Today I'd like to talk to you about the economic state of our country. So first I'd like to take a step back and talk about the Great Depression and what happened back then in the 1930s. I do have a graph for you, and it'll illustrate what actually happened then. I know that employment rates were really low, and people were even on bread lumps. We were at war. It was an absolute mess. I can't find my graph. It's when our centralized bank was established, known as the Federal Reserve, modeled after the English bank, I believe. Forget it. I am just not organized. You know, I'm really thinking that I should have paid attention during public reading class, and I wouldn't have had this problem and embarrassed myself. There's so many different patterns I could have used that would have kept me organized and on track. For instance, the topical pattern would have been really good for me because I had several main points of equal importance, and the topical pattern could have done exactly what it sounds like it does, which would have kept me on topic. And instead I was all over the place because I didn't use any outline. So the topical pattern, I probably should have used that one. I remember the text telling us that it was especially pertinent to speeches involving powers of government, speech on cities, world's major religions, things of nature. So although that would have been appropriate, there is another one that probably would have been perfect for this speech, which was called the temporal pattern. It helps one to remain clear when speaking about things in a time order. For example, events that maybe happened in the past, such as the Great Depression, and it brings you to present day, and what may even happen in the future, which is something that I did want to go into, but was not organized enough to really fast forward to you. So the temporal pattern would have been especially useful in historical type topics, such as the one that I was about to speak to you about. Now, there was another topic it's called the spatial pattern, and although it probably was not appropriate for my speech, it would help with speeches that involved objects or places. For example, I remember learning in text that the spatial pattern is especially used in describing like building layouts, such as maybe one of a hospital or school or even a skyscraper, but it's also useful in describing anatomical structure of a person or an animal. For instance, most textbooks will use the spatial pattern. Now, another good one that I could have used was the problem-solving pattern. You know, I can't believe that I forgot about this because it's one of my favorite types. It's mostly used for like persuasive speeches, and because I'm from a sales-oriented background and do strive to become an attorney, persuasive geared outlines in speeches are something that I can really appreciate. It's useful to really illustrate an argument or even a sales pitch because it breaks down a general problem or objection and it solves it respectively. So that would have been a really good one to use. The motivated sequence is similar to that one, but it could have been really useful to me as well. It's another pattern for really getting an idea across or selling an idea. It was developed back in the 1930s by a man named Alan Monroe, and it was typically for the use of sales presentations, but today we see it a lot. It's actually used in television ads, political messages, things of that nature, because what it does, it goes through a few different steps. It first really grabs the audience's attention. Then it illustrates a certain problem, whether it's a real problem or a perceived problem. So therefore, it's establishing needs. For instance, maybe, I don't know, need for change. Sounds familiar? That shows how the need can be satisfied. Also shows the listener how to really envision once that problem has been eliminated. Finally, it calls for action. What the listener must actually do to resolve their problem, such as vote. Then lastly, I could have used what's called a cause-effect pattern. Now, what that was done is effectively help communicate a connection between two different events or elements. So events being the current economic state versus the depression of the 1930s. It would have compared and contrasted the connection between those. So that would have been appropriate for my speech as well. It would be two major sections, obviously, a cause and an effect section. So the main topics would have a general cause, general effect, with factual evidence to support each course, like my graph that I couldn't find. Now, I do recall there are some additional ones that perhaps are outlines that are not widely used, not as popular. I remember that in the textbook around page 154, although those 6 other ones that we went over are really appropriate ones and really widely used. There are more that could be used as well that I could have not embarrassed myself. So next time I do a speech, I definitely will be better prepared. I will use one of these tabs. They're designed to keep a speech on track. So by utilizing the appropriate one, I would have naturally found myself going from subject to subject smoothly with a smooth transition. Remember that for next time.